everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So today I thought I might read a few poems or a poem from this book. It's Four Quartets by T.S. Eliot. And the reason why I decided this book today was because at 3 a.m. yesterday I was organizing my bookshelf, the one by my window. I did not realize my window was open when I was cleaning up. And some books fell, and they were like a pile of my favorite books ever. On the Road, W.B. Yeats, this book, and another book that was a psychology textbook, right? And some of them fell. The psychology textbook is still on the roof, the little canopy before the main entrance. So someone hopefully will be getting that today with a ladder. That won't be me, but yeah, I learned my mistake. I learned from my mistake, never just check if the window's open before I start tidying up, because that was a really dumb idea. But anyway, I rushed downstairs once I realized what happened, and I was so terrified. I was like, what if I lose some of my most favorite books in the world? And I walk out the front door, and I just see, in the middle of the darkness, this book on the ground, like just flapping in the wind. And I was like, that was a sign. I don't know what the sign means, but I will do a video of this book today. Yeah. No, T.S. Eliot is one of my favorite poets. I like to visit Margate a lot, and I think he spent a long time in Margate. I think he wrote Wasteland there. His wife liked the sea air because she was hit by consumption, I think, so they used to go to the seaside a lot. And he was also like, no, I think she was suffering from melancholy. They called it melancholy back in those days. But he said that Margate was an incredible place that inspired him. So when I got to go there, I could not be more happy. I was so excited when I was there because I got to see the things that he saw. I got to experience life as he experienced it by the seaside, and it was honestly very relaxing and cathartic. That's where I wrote a lot of poetry, especially a year ago. But anyway, this book is so special. My favorite book, I think, in my whole collection. That is because when I was 15, right, I really wanted to go to a lecture at the Gresham College, and it was by this, I think it was a lady who was a professor of English Lit, and she was doing like an analysis of T.S. Eliot, Four Quartets to be exact, and going to that was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. So I wrote some notes about that I wanted to read. These were mainly quotes that she gave. I also see I have a lot of, trying to find that. Where is it? Yeah, I've analyzed it through the years. Just because I like that. Oh, he has ancient Greek in there. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd for ancient Greek. I studied it in high school, and I recently found my old textbook, so I'm trying to pick up ancient Greek again. I just love writing the letters, and stuff. But yes, my beautiful notes on Four Quartets. Oh, the coffee I had earlier is hitting me now. Right, let's get through this. So, here are some of the notes I've written. Might not make sense now, but it made sense to me at some point. But we'll go through them. They're mainly quotes that I got from that lecture. I wish I knew her name. I'm gonna find out her name and tell you in the next video. But yeah, some of the things I've written in here. This was when I was 15. I wrote God delusion. I don't know what that means, like in context of this, because I didn't write anything more, but God delusion. Here I've got a quote by T.S. Eliot. It was a letter to Stephen Spender, and he writes about Beethoven. Here's a quote. I have Beethoven's A minor quartet, number 15 on the gramophone, and I find it quite inexhaustible to study. There is a sort of heavenly, or at least more than human gaiety about some of his later things which one imagines might come to oneself as the fruits of reconciliation and relief after immense suffering. I should like to get something of that into verse before I die. It was T.S. Eliot in 1931. I feel this quote, so I'm just reading it over and over again right now, because it reminds me of when I went to the seaside, to where T.S. Eliot went to, and it reminds me of how writing was the only thing that helped me after many different difficult things that I'd gone through. Writing was the only thing that was there. There were just months of my life where I could not do anything but write poetry, write diary entries, and that was it. I mean, I was doing school, like uni work and stuff, but I gave up everything else that wasn't school to focus on writing. And what I wrote then wasn't great, but that's fine, because like David Lynch says, I have his quote here actually on my wall. I knew my stuff sucked, but I needed to burn through. I needed to find what was mine, and the only way to find it is just to keep painting and see if you catch something. So I really get in my head about art and just think, oh, this is really bad, I should stop here, stop now. But the thing is, you just have to keep going through it, you have to keep burning through it. Yeah. And so what T.S. Eliot says about finding reconciliation and relief after immense suffering, I see that in two ways. I see that in one way, using writing to gain that sense of relief, but also how writing can create immense suffering in the fact that there's no sense of relief when you think everything you make is bad, you know? But then hoping that one day you will get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm actually pretty proud of that. Here are more quotes. This is a quote by Joyce Carol Oates, who's an American writer. She said, prose, it might be speculated, is discourse. Poetry, ellipses, from Greek, means omission, falling short. Sorry, this doesn't make much sense. Prose is spoken aloud, poetry overheard. The one is presumably articulate and social, a shared language, a voice of communication. The other is private, elusive, teasing, sly, idiosyncratic as a spider's delicate web, a kind of witchcraft. I like that. I like that one a lot. Then a quote by Dylan Thomas. You're back with the mystery of having been moved by words. The best craftsmanship always leaves holes and gaps, so that something that is not in the poem can creep, crawl, flash, or thunder in. I love that quote. I can over-explain a lot. I tend to over-describe a lot, and I think that's why I like poetry. It forces me to really concentrate the raw emotions and images so that I'm not giving the whole story away. I'm just giving the salient points, so then whoever's reading it can interpret it, and then it becomes their poem, you know, it becomes their vision that they've placed upon what I've written. So I like what he said. I think it's really good that I'm going through this again, because I really haven't read this since I was 15. Yeah, here was the quote from the lecture that was given on this by that lady. The holes and gaps leaves the reader a degree of creative freedom in terms of constructing meaning, as opposed to being told something. It leaves the reader to make up their own interpretation. This is a quote by Geoffrey Hill. He said, difficult poetry is the most democratic because you are doing your audience the honour of supposing that they are an intellectual human being. If you write as if you had to placate or in any way entice their lack of interest, then I think you are making a condescending assumption about people. I mean, people are not fools, but so much of the populist poetry of today treats people as if they were fools. So don't write for the reader. Don't write for the people. That's what I wrote in quotes, in brackets. Then Eli Klamarov said, another quote, poets use words to reinvigorate language. Oh, sorry, that was my words. Okay, this is her quote. Poets are soldiers who liberate words from the steadfast possession of definition. Right. And then I circled quartet and wrote, this is my analysis, explicit reference to music and form, Eliot's fascinated with the parallels between poetry and music. I think for me, I obsessively listen to music. I have obsessively listened to music for all of my life, I think. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like poetry so much, because even though I can't sing or play an instrument particularly well, I'm able to replicate something that is trying to be a bit melodious in this world, that isn't necessarily creating music with a guitar or my voice or whatever. I wrote, For Quartets is concerned with the internal conflict between individual mortality and the endless span of human existence. Exploration of our relationship with time, space, and the divine. If it's more difficult, it's probably a really good poem. Yeah. Burnt Norden. I think a lot of people who like Lana Del Rey, true hardcore fans, will know her song called Burnt Norden and how beautiful it is. Right, and then here I've got some definitions of words that I didn't know at the time, like pastiche, the form I wrote about the form of this poem, repetition of words creates new rhythms. Time here is an abstract principle, the past and the future are contained in the present, delight in pattern, theme, tempo, mood, and form. Right, Burnt Norden, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you have a lovely cup of tea like I'm having right now. It's the rose tea that I showed you in the earlier video. It's actually the same cup of rose tea. Anyway, Burnt Norden. Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we may never opened in the rose garden. My words echo thus, in your mind. But to what purpose, disturbing the dust on a bowl of rose leaves, I do not know. Other echoes inhabit the garden. Shall we follow? Quick, said the bird, find them, round the corner, through the first gate, into our first world. Shall we follow the deception of the thrush? Into our first world. There they were, dignified, invisible, moving without pressure over the dead leaves in the autumn heat, through the vibrant air. And the bird called, in response to the unheard music hidden in the shrubbery, and the unseen eye-beam crossed, for the roses had the look of flowers that are looked at. There they were as our guest, accepted and accepting. So we moved, and they, in a formal pattern, along the empty alley into the box circle, to look down into the drained pool. Dry the pool, dry concrete, brown-edged, and the pool was filled with water out of sunlight, and the lotus rose, quietly, quietly. The surface glittered out of heart of light, and they were behind us, reflected in the pool. Then a cloud passed, and the pool was empty. Go, said the bird, for the leaves were full of children, hidden excitedly. containing laughter. Go, 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 said the bird. Humankind cannot bear very much reality. Time past and time future, what might have been and what has been, point to one end, which is always present. Garlic and sapphires in the mud clot the bedded axle tree. The trilling wire in the blood sings below, inveterate scars, appeasing long-forgotten wars. The dawns along the artery, the circulation of the lymph are figured in the drift of stars, ascend to heaven in the tree. We move above the moving tree, in light upon the figured leaf, and here upon the sodden floor below. The boarhound and the boar pursue their passion as before, but reconciled among the stars. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, but neither arrest nor movement. And do not call it fixity, where past and future are gathered, neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, the still point. There would be no dance, and there is only the dance. I can only say, there we have been, but I cannot say where. And I cannot say for how long, for that is to place it in time. The inner freedom from the practical desire, the release from action and suffering, release from the inner and outer compulsion, yet surrounded by a grace of sense, a white light still and moving, Erhebung without motion, concentration without elimination, both the new world and the old made explicit, understood in the completion of its partial ecstasy, the resolution of its partial horror. Yet the enchainment of past and future woven into the weakness of the changing body protects mankind from heaven and damnation which flesh cannot endure. Time past and time future allow but a little consciousness. To be conscious is not to be in time, but only in time can the moment in the rose garden, the moment in the arbour where the rain beat, the moment in the draughty church at smokefall, be remembered, involved with past and future, only through time. Time is conquered. Here is a place of disaffection, time before and time after in a dim light. Neither daylight, investing form with lucid stillness, turning shadow into transient beauty, with slow rotation, suggesting permanence, nor darkness to purify the soul, emptying the sensual with deprivation, and cleansing affection from the temporal, neither plenitude nor vacancy, only a flicker over the strained, time-ridden faces, distracted from distraction by distraction, filled with fancies and empty of meaning, tumid apathy with no concentration, men and bits of paper, whirled by the cool wind that blows before and time after, wind in and out of unwholesome lungs, time before and time after. Eructation of unhealthy souls into the faded air, the torpid driven on in the wind that sweeps the gloomy hills of London, Hampstead and Clerkenwell, Camden and Putney, Highgate, Primrose and Ludgate. Not here the darkness in this twittering world. Descend lower, descend only into the world of perpetual solitude, world, not world, but that which is not world, internal darkness, deprivation and destitution of all property, desiccation of the world of sense, evacuation of the world of fancy, inoperancy of the world of spirit. This is the one way, and the other is the same, not in movement, but abstention from movement, while the world moves in appetency on its metalled ways of time past and time future. Time and the bell have buried the day, the black cloud carries the sun away. Will the sunflower turn to us? Will the clematis stray down, bend to us, tendril and spray, clutch and cling? Chill fingers of you be curled down on us. After the kingfisher's wing has answered light to light, and is silent, the light is still, at the still point of the turning world. Words move, music moves, only in time, but that which is only living can only die. Words, after speech, reach into the silence. Only by the form, the pattern, can words or music reach the stillness, as a Chinese jar still moves perpetually in its stillness, not the stillness of the violin, while the notes last, not that only, but the coexistence, or say that the end precedes the beginning, and the beginning and the end and the beginning were always there, before the beginning and after the end. And all is always now. Words strain, crack, and sometimes break under the burden, under the tension, slip, slide, perish, decay with imprecision, will not stay in place, will not stay still. Shrieking voices, scolding, mocking, or merely chattering, always assail them. The word in the desert is most attacked by voices of temptation, the crying shadow in the funeral dance, the loud lament of the disconsolate chimera. The detail of the pattern is movement, as in the figure of the 10 stairs. Desire itself is movement, not in itself desirable. Love is itself unmoving, only the cause and end of movement, timeless and undesiring, except in the aspect of time caught in the form of limitation between unbeing and being. Sudden in a shaft of sunlight, even while the dust moves, there rises the hidden laughter of children in the foliage. Quick now, here, now, always. Ridiculous the waste-sad time, stretching before and after. The end. Ooh, the end. I hope you enjoyed that. I really did. I really did enjoy revisiting. Kind of feels like an old friend of mine. That sounded really sad. I enjoyed revisiting that. When I had read it the first time, I pictured the rose garden so vividly in my mind. It was the same setting that I have in my mind that comes up when I read Keats, mainly the Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to a Grecian Urn. I don't know why, but I always have the same garden stuck in my head, and it expands every time I read something that reminds me of that garden. And I love how every time I read this poem, I can just go back to that place where T.S. Eliot contemplates what the present means, what the future, what the past means, and all that stuff. And also the inherent meaningless of it, you know? Because I think as humans we become obsessed with time past, time present, time future, and we forget that the smallest of creatures, like the birds, they just care about the present, don't they? They kind of just live in the moment, whereas we become obsessed with calendars and diaries and clocks and all these things that bind us to a very human world. But I like this quote that I wrote. I talked about how this garden, this rose garden, is very much like the Garden of Eden. And I wrote, Garden of Eden is a place of unattainable peace, normally forbidden to mere mortals, but it exists in memory and in literature as a standard to which everyday existence must be unfavorable compared to this. We can only enter it through poetry and art. And then I wrote about the drained pool. The ruins are a symbol for the futility of trying to change natural order, futility of human aspirations. Coherence never existed in this world, yet the poem does not lament this. And he mentions the Chinese jar. I said that it's similar to Keats' Ode to a Grecian Urn. Here's a quote, I think it was from the lecture. The capacity of art to go beyond the limits of the moment, achieve a kind of victory over time, the jar is able to overcome the usual imprecision of human expression. I love that poem. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.